I'm Lucas,
And I'm Russell.
and you're listening.
You're listening to Sad Boy Podcast.
Yeah, sad boy.
Sad Boy Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Sad Boy Podcast.
It has been a very, very long time. The last episode that we had was back at the end of July, so we've been literally gone since July. So let's see, August, September. We've been gone for like around 2-3 months.
Yep.
We did have something big, a bigger project planned.
Yep.
But then COVID cases started rising again, so we didn't think it would be a good idea to, be meeting up and doing the project.
So that project's been scrapped?
No, it's not been scrapped.
It's on hold.
It's on hold until the COVID cases die down. Because for people who don't know, me and Lucas do live pretty far away from each other.
Still.
It's like a 40-minute drive. But if it's nighttime on the DVP, he takes like 20 minutes to get to my place.
I'm not gonna explain how. It just does.
Yeah. But we still live quite far from each other.
Yep.
So that's why it's kind of, this project will be on hold for now. So also in the meantime, I've been busy with moving and packing and all that stuff. So I've been busy as well. Like, I'm pretty sure soon enough, all the microphones and everything will be packed into boxes and everything. So
yep,
maybe expect another mini hiatus.
Russell's gonna be gone for another year.
Not year, maybe like we'll see. We'll see how I can set up a recording space in the temporary place that I'm going to be living in. We'll see.
So let's just say a year for now.
Nah, not a year. Maybe half a year. We'll say half a year.
Half a year.
At most. Half a year at most. Because in April-ish, I'll be in the actual new place. Yeah. By then, I should be able to have a spot to record properly.
Okay.
But anyways, we're back just in time for Halloween. The spooky season.
Spooky.
Yeah.
This is actually our second Halloween episode.
Yeah, so remember last year, like, I would talk about ghost stories from my own experience. And last year, we also had Jeff to talk about his ghost stories.
Yep.
His gentleman ghost story.
Yeah. Who's this gentleman?
He had, like, he had a dream about this gentleman that kept coming in. And he said that, like, if he told people, the gentleman would kill them too. So he decided to tell everyone because he wanted to bring everyone down with him if he was going to die.
Okay, it's been way too long since
it's been a long time. And like the thing is, like, this year passed by so fast. This whole year has been spooky. It's not even just this month, it's the whole year. Okay.
Yep.
But I think before we get into that, I know like there's been a lot of things that have happened in the past 2 or 3 months. And it's like things are just like nonstop happening, right? Like, we had Chadwick Boseman that like passed away.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Yeah, rest in power. Wakanda forever.
Yeah.
Then there's like other stuff, right? But we'll get into Ivan Bay and like Huhu Basa.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, but we'll probably get into we'll talk more about that, next episode or something. Because this episode, you know what? It's Halloween. The spooky season's back.
Yes.
And this time we're gonna be reading what are we reading, Lucas?
Squidward Suicide.
Hell yeah.
So this is all new to me. I don't know. Some people might know what this is.
I heard about this a long time ago because there was a video that was with it, right?
Yeah.
So as I read the story, I'm just gonna read it in first person.
Okay.
Like, this didn't happen to me, but I'm just gonna read it in first person, right?
Just pretend it happened to you.
Yeah. So I hope you guys know who Squidward is.
From SpongeBob?
I hope you guys do. Yeah, if you guys don't know SpongeBob, what is wrong with you? It's like childhood. Nickelodeon childhood is SpongeBob.
Well, not a lot of people know watch SpongeBob, right?
What, they watch counterfeit SpongeBob? SpongeBob.
It's probably in Korean.
SpongeBob.
Probably in Korean. It's like K-drama.
Oh, K-drama SpongeBob?
K-drama SpongeBob. And you just hear like the goblin theme whenever an episode ends.
Oh yeah, and then you have like a love story between SpongeBob and Patrick.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna start the story. I'm gonna try my best to be a good story reader.
Mm-hmm.
as you all know, I'm very like turbulent, so I don't know. Sometimes the story just I'm just not that great at it, but we'll try. We'll try today.
Okay, storyteller Russell.
Yeah, storyteller Russell. Okay, so like I said, I'm reading this from first person, right? So
Yeah.
I just want to start off by saying if you want an answer at the end, prepare to be disappointed. There just isn't one. I was an intern at Nickelodeon Studios for a year in 2005 for my degree in animation. It wasn't paid, of course, like most internships aren't, but it did have some perks beyond education. To adults, it might not seem like a big one, but most kids at the time would shit themselves over it. And it's true. I think back then we would go crazy for an internship because it's experience, right? So now, since I've worked directly with the editors and animators, I got to view the new episodes days before they aired. I'll get right to it without giving too many unnecessary details. They had very recently made the SpongeBob movie, and the entire staff was somewhat sapped of creativity, so it took them longer to start up the season. But the delay lasted longer for more upsetting reasons. There was a problem with the Series 4 premiere that set everyone and everything back for several months. Me and two other interns were in the editing room, along with the lead animators and sound editors for the final cut. We received the copy that was supposed to be Fear of a Krabby Patty, and gathered around the screen to watch. Now, given that it isn't final yet, animators often put up a mock title card, sort of inside jokes for us, with phony, oftentimes lewd titles, such as How Sex Doesn't Work instead of Rockabye by Valve, when SpongeBob and Patrick adopt a sea scallop. Nothing particularly funny, but work-related chuckles. So when we saw the title card Squidward's suicide, we didn't think of it more than, a morbid joke. So one of the interns did a small throat laugh at it. The happy-go-lucky music plays as normal. The story began with Squidward practicing his clarinet, hitting a few sour notes like normal. We hear SpongeBob laughing outside. Squidward stops, yelling at him to keep it down as he has a concert that night and needs to practice. SpongeBob says okay, and goes to see Sandy with Patrick. The bubble splash screen comes up and we see the ending of Squidward's concert. This is when things began to seem off. While playing, a few frames repeat themselves, but the sound doesn't. At this point, the sound is like synced up with the animation, so yes, that's not common. But when he stops playing, the sound finishes as if the skip never happened. There is a slight murmuring in the crowd before they begin to boo him. Not normal cartoon booing that is common in the show, but you could very clearly hear malice in it. Squidward is in full frame and looks visibly afraid. The shot goes to the crowd with SpongeBob in center frame, and he too is booing, very much unlike him. That isn't the oddest thing though. What is odd is everyone had hyper-realistic eyes, very detailed. Clearly not shots of real people's eyes, but something a bit more than CGI. The pupils were red. Some of us looked at each other, obviously confused, but since we weren't the writers, we didn't question its appeal to children yet. The shot goes to Squidward, sitting on the edge on his bed, looking very forlorn. I don't know what that means, forlorn. The view out of his porthole window is of a night sky, so it isn't very long after the concert. The unsettling part is at this point there's no sound. Literally no sound. Not even the feedback from the speakers in the room. It's as if the speakers were turned off, though their status showed they were working perfectly fine. He just sat there, blinking, in this silence for about 30 seconds, and then he started to sob softly. He put his hands, which were his tentacles, over his eyes and cried quietly for about a full minute, all while a sound in the background very slowly growing from nothing to barely audible. It sounded like a slight breeze through a forest. The screen slowly begins to zoom in on his face. By slow, I mean it's only noticeable if you look at shots 10 seconds apart side by side. His sobbing gets louder, more full of hurt and anger. The screen then twitches a bit, as if it twists in on itself. For a split second, then back to normal. The wind through the trees sound gets slowly louder and more severe, as if a storm is brewing somewhere. The eerie part is the sound, and Squidward's sobbing sounded real, as if the sound wasn't coming from the speakers, but as if the speakers were holes. The sound was coming through from the other side. As good as the sound as the studios like to have, they don't purchase the equipment to be that good to produce that sound of quality. Below the sound of the wind and sobbing, very faint, something sounded like laughing. It came at odd intervals and never lasted more than a second, so you had a hard time pinning it. After 30 seconds of this, the screen blurred and twitched violently, and something flashed over the screen as if a single frame was replaced. The lead animation editor paused and rewound frame by frame. What we saw was horrible. It was a still photo of a dead child. He couldn't have been more than 6. The face was mangled and bloodied, one eye dangling over his upturned face, popped. He was naked down to his underwear, his stomach crudely cut open and his entrails laying beside him. He was laying on some pavement that was probably a road. The most upsetting part was that there was a shadow of the photographer. There was no crime tape, no evidence tags, no markers, and the angle was completely off for a shot designed to be evidence. It would seem the photographer was the person responsible for the child's death. We were of course mortified, but pressed on, hoping that it was just a sick joke. The screen flipped back to Squidward, still sobbing louder than before, and half body in frame. There was now what appeared to be blood running down his face from his eyes. The blood was also done in a very hyper-realistic style, looking as if you touched it, you'd get blood on your fingers. The wind sounded now as if it were that of a gale blowing through the forest. There were even snapping sounds of branches, the laughing, a deep baritone lasting at longer intervals and coming more frequently. After about 20 seconds, the screen again twisted and showed a single frame photo. The editor was reluctant to go back. We all were. But he knew he had to. This time, the photo was that of what appeared to be a little girl, no older than the first child. She was laying on her stomach, her barrettes in a pool of blood next to her. Her left eye was too popped out and popped, naked except for underpants. Her entrails were piled up on top of her above another crude cut along her back. Again, the body was on the street and the photographer's shadow was visible, very similar in size and shape to the first. I had to choke back vomit, and one intern, the only female in the room, ran out. The show resumed. After 5 seconds after the second photo played, Squidward was silent, as did all sound, like it was when the scene started. He put his tentacles down, and his eyes were now done by hyperrealism, like the others were in the beginning of that episode. They were bleeding, bloodshot, and pulsating. He just stared at the screen, as if watching the viewer. After about 10 seconds, he started sobbing, this time not covering his eyes. The sound was piercing and loud, and most fear-inducing of all is his sobbing was mixed with screams. Tears and blood were dripping down his face at a heavy rate. The wind sound came back, and so did a deep voice laughing, and this time, the still photo lasted for a good 5 frames. The animator was able to stop it on the 4th and backed up. This time the photo was of a boy, about the same age, but this time the scene was different. The entrails were just being pulled out from a stomach wound by a large hand. The right eye popped and dangling, blood trickling down it. The animator proceeded. It was hard to believe, but the next one was different, but we couldn't tell what. He went on to the next, same thing. He went back to the first and played them quicker, and I lost it. I vomited on the floor, the animating and the sound editors gasping at the screen. The 5 frames were not as if they were 5 different photos. They were played out as if they were frames from a video. We saw the hand slowly lift out the guts. We saw the kid's eyes focus on it. We even saw 2 frames of the kid beginning to blink. The lead sound editor told us to stop. He had to call in the creator to see this. Mr. Hillenberg arrived within 15 minutes. He was confused as to why he was called down there, so the editor just continued the episode. Once the few frames were shown, all screaming, all sound again stopped. Squidward was just staring at the viewer, full frame of the face, for about 3 seconds. The shot quickly panned out, and the deep voice said, "Do it." And we see in Squidward's hand a shotgun. He immediately puts the gun in his mouth and pulls the trigger. Realistic blood and brain matter splatters the wall behind him and his bed, and he flies back with force. The last 5 seconds of this episode shows his body on the bed, on his side, one eye dangling on what's left of his head above the floor, staring blankly at it. Then the episode ends. Mr. Hillenberg is obviously very angry at this. He demanded to know what the hell was going on. Most people left the room at this point, so it was just a handful of us to watch it again. Viewing the episode twice only served to imprint the entirety of it in my mind and caused me horrible nightmares. I'm sorry I stayed. The only theory we could think of was that the file was edited by someone in the chain from the drawing studio to here. The CTO was called in to analyze when it happened. The analysis of the file did show that it was edited over by new material. However, the timestamp of it was a mere 24 seconds before we began viewing it. All equipment involved was examined for foreign software and hardware as well as glitches, as if the timestamp may have glitched and showed the wrong time, but everything checked out fine. We don't know what happened, and to this day nobody does. There was an investigation due to the nature of the photos, but nothing came of it. No child scene was identified, and no clues were gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues in the photos. I never believed in unexplainable phenomena before, but now that I have something happen and can't prove anything about it beyond evidence, I think twice about things.
Interesting.
And that is the story of Squidward's suicide. And there's actually a YouTube video. I think
It's the original?
I guess so. Well, apparently the comments say the videos don't match the article. I don't know. But
it's just a still picture of the
Squidward.
Yeah, just what? Yeah, with music, with heavy metal music. It's like a video.
Yeah. Oh man. You know what? SpongeBob, I don't know. It was more creepy when I read it as a kid, I think.
Yeah. It's not scary. It's just
I can make it scary.
Well,
No, I can't. I can't.
well,
I can't. I really can't. Anyways, like I still have like other stories
All right.
in here. Don't worry.
all right.
Okay, so this is another one, right? I think I sent it to you already, right?
Which one?
Lucas?
Which one?
The first one that I sent you today.
The doll thing? Yeah,
the
yeah,
doll.
you sent it to me.
So I don't know how much you guys hate dolls, because I know I hate dolls and puppets like a lot.
Freaking hate dolls.
Yeah, dolls are like the worst. Like
How could it be a children's
I just-
toy? I don't understand.
I know they're creepy.
Yeah.
Dolls are friggin' creepy.
Yeah, whose idea was it to have like a children's toy?
God, you people from the olden days making dolls and stuff.
Like plushes could be like,
Plushies are cute.
Yeah.
See, I have the one like the octopus where like that's smiling on one side and you flip it, it's like angry on the other side. Now that's cute.
yeah. Who's
But dolls?
No.
I don't
No,
know,
no,
man.
not
I'm
fam.
even scared of Barbie dolls, man. Barbie comes
Yo.
to life and like attacks me.
what? No.
I don't know. Ken and Barbie, sometimes they just don't like me, you know?
All right.
Yeah. Anyways, this story is about Robert the doll.
Okay.
So I'm gonna read this story again. All right. Okay. So, in the late 1800s, Thomas Otto and his family moved into a mansion at the corner of Eaton and Simonton Streets in Key West, Florida, now known as the Artist House. The Ottos were known to be stern with their servants and sometimes mistreating them. So, there's a little twist to the story where one day this woman was hired to take care of their son Robert. So she was hired to take care of the son, and then one day Mrs. Otto supposedly witnessed her practicing black magic in their backyard, and they fired her. So before this woman left, she gave Robert a lifelike doll which stood 3 feet tall and had buttons for eyes and human hair and was filled with straw. Now the human hair was believed to be Robert's, which is already pretty creepy. And I think having a 3 feet tall doll is already very creepy. Even a 1 foot tall doll, I'd be creeped out.
All dolls are creepy.
All dolls are creepy, even if they're finger size. Even finger puppets, I'm scared.
Wait, actually?
So dolls,
No.
some I don't know. I just hate dolls, man. I really hate
All right.
dolls.
Got you.
Yeah. So dolls that dolls that resembled children were not unheard of during this time, but this one proved to be special. So Robert decided to name this doll after him, and he would dress up this doll in his clothes. So I'm guessing Robert's probably like around 3 feet tall. If they can wear the same clothes, that's weird. That's weird.
That's super weird.
Yeah. So Robert the doll became a trusty companion for Robert the human. It sounds weird when I say that. Robert the human would take the doll on shopping trips into town, and even when they eat dinner, the doll would have its own seat, and Robert would feed the doll food too when the parents weren't looking. Robert would even tuck the doll into bed, and yeah, like it seemed normal, right? But after a little bit, this little relationship just started getting weird. So soon after, Robert decided to name this doll after himself. So he called the doll Robert, and he decided to go by his middle name, which was Gene. So Gene was apparently often heard in his toy room having conversations with the doll. Gene would say something childish or in a childish manner, and the responses would be heard in a very much lower voice. I guess it's kind of like,
Yeah, I like apples.
Me too.
kind of thing, right? So sometimes Jean would become very agitated, worrying the servants and his mother. She would, on occasion, burst in to find her son cowering in a corner while Robert sat perched in a chair or on the bed glaring at him. But this was just the beginning. They started finding household objects like being thrown across the room. Jean's other toys turned up mutilated, and giggling could be heard when they found the mutilated toys. So whenever these things happened, Jean would just, say, Robert did it. The doll did it. But his mom would just beat Robert instead, punished Robert.
Poor Robert.
So I know, poor Robert.
Holy shit.
No, poor Jean. Jean's the one that's getting beat up. My bad.
Oh, okay, poor Gene.
Yeah, Jean's the one that's getting beat up for something that the doll did. So as the mischief grew, more and more servants took their leave as new ones were hired. The Otto's relatives felt like it was time to do something. With the recommendation of a great aunt, Jean's parents moved Robert the doll from Jean's care and into a box in the attic. So after Jean's dad died, Jean basically got the house that he grew up in with the doll, right? So he decided to live there with his new wife. Jean was like an artist now, and he felt like this house had enough room for him to paint and do his own thing, right? So he decided to go to the attic and he dusted off his childhood toy. He basically brought Robert back, and he became attached to this doll again, even though his wife was like, "What the fuck?" So Jean decided to take this doll everywhere he went again.
What the fuck?
He even sat in his favorite little chair while Jean and his wife slept nearby. This is already pretty fucked up.
Yo, what the fuck, Gene?
I know, right? So there's this room called the turret room. And this turret room... Turret?
Tourette?
Oh, man, that's weird. No, the little turret.
Yeah.
Yeah, turret room. However people want to pronounce it. So this room became Robert's domain after Mrs. Otto moved him back to the attic. The marriage between, I guess, Gene and his wife started to become sour, and then his wife supposedly went insane and died of unknown reasons. And then Gene followed soon afterwards. So after all that, Robert supposedly still attacks people, sometimes locking them in the attic. People who pass by claim to hear evil laughter coming from the turret room. For some time, Robert remained in the empty house by himself until a new family purchased the mansion and restored it. The doll was once again moved to the attic. This pleased it as much as the last time. The doll was often found throughout the house, and there was one certain night where Robert was found at the foot of the owner's bed giggling with a kitchen knife in hand. This was enough to send them fleeing from this house, because, if I saw that, I'd just move to a different country.
What?
Like, I'd be done.
What?
I'd run. I'd leave everything behind, just run.
Okay.
So now, Robert is actually moved to a museum in Key West. It's called the East Martello Museum. And he sits in a glass box. Even though he's kind of living in a new place, the doll is still pretty evil. So apparently visitors and employees claim they have seen the doll move. His smile has been known to turn into a scowl. And even one employee, he decided to clean Robert. He turned off all the lights and went home, did his thing. Next day when he came back, the lights were still on, and Robert was sitting in a different position than the night that he left it, with a fresh layer of dust on his shoes. As some say, Robert will even curse you. If you want to take a picture of him, you gotta ask politely. And if you do, he'll tell to his head in permission. But if you don't, and you just take a picture, like those white girls with like those selfies things,
What?
a curse will befall you and anyone that came with you to the museum. And the same thing happens if you make fun of him. Oh shit, I'm making fun of him.
You literally just made fun of him.
I'm so sorry, Robert.
Hi, Robert. Oh shit.
But to this day, the doll is still in that museum in his sailor suit, clutching his stuffed lion, continuing his menacing ways. Robert the doll.
Yo, I don't know why they just didn't like burn Robert. I would have just burned Robert.
I would have burned Robert too.
Yeah,
That's scary.
Like,
That's scary.
what, this is like in the Victorian days?
Yeah, this is Victorian days.
Fire everywhere. Just burn Robert. You have a fireplace too.
Everything olden is like it's scary. Yeah, so like that's the that's I guess all the scary stuff I got. I wish I had more. I don't know, like I tried to search for like the scariest things, but then when you're in the basement alone with like, you know, some of the lights off, you don't really want to read that stuff. I hope everyone enjoyed the creepy Halloween story for this year. Next year we'll definitely have like more. Yeah, and next year we'll have more because next year I'll actually have like a proper area to do all this and do all the research and everything. Even though I did do research on this, but like I mean, more research.
Yes.
And more scary stories,
Yes.
right? Yeah, but until then, I guess we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys next week. Well, see you next week.
Spooky,
Spooky, yo.
Yeah, spooky.
Spooky.
Good night
See you in 6 months.
and peace out. Next week, all right. Peace out next week. Good night. Spooky.
Spooks.
Spooky.
Thanks for listening to the Sad Boy Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and have a nice day, I guess.
Yeah, stay sad or happy.
Sad, happy.
Sad,
Sad
happy.
Boy.
Sad Boy Podcast.
Sad Boy Podcast. Good night.